Welcome back. Let's talk about the fifth principle of economics. Trade can make everyone better off. So let's start with a question of why trade? Well, imagine being a self-sufficient farmer. Sometimes we tend to idealize this notion a little bit about working outside and growing the food that you're going to eat, etc. But that picture becomes much darker when we start to think about the realities of it. That barn and silo, you're going to need help to build that, no longer self-sufficient. And what about that tractor? Oh, somebody else helped make that tractor. So at best, you're going to have some rudimentary tools. This is starting to sound like way too much work, and this romanticized notion turns to a depressing thought very quickly. So let's think about why trade. We'll start with a thought experiment. So would you buy something that you don't want? No, wait, I'm going to buy stuff that I want or that I need. So are you happy after you buy the item that you want? Yep, for sure. But is the seller happy? Is the seller happy after they sell you an item? Yep, they're happy too. So here's the punchline. Voluntary trade makes both sides better off, or they wouldn't voluntarily engage in the trade. All right, so what do we trade? So if specialization in trade can make us better off, then what do individuals produce, sell? How does this process work? So individuals or people trade their labor for dollars, and then they trade those dollars for services. They often specialize in the labor that they trade away to get the highest price possible. They produce one good or skill well and exchange it for others. This is sort of micro-level trade, thinking about it at the individual level. But if we zoom out and think about nations or countries, is the picture similar? So countries tend to have individuals and firms that often have similar resources available to them. They're located in the same geographic region, they go through the similar education systems, maybe their culture is somewhat similar. So these individuals and firms within a country are somewhat similar. No, they're not all the same. Yes, there's variation, but folks in the US have access to similar resources. Folks in China have access to similar resources in China, and you have differences between the resources in the two countries. So that means we can think of these countries as being somewhat similar groups of individuals within the country. So countries trade away some of what they do well. It's what's relatively inexpensive for them to produce. So think for the US, this is the Midwest growing wheat. And they trade for some of what they don't do as well. So these are things that are relatively expensive for the country that produce. So think trying to grow bananas in the US Midwest. That's just not going to work. So the US is going to grow wheat and trade it away, and we're going to trade for bananas. That's the idea here. Trade away what we do well for what we don't do very well. So when we're thinking about countries, what does the US do other than just Midwest wheat? Well, for the US, we tend to produce and trade away high skill, capital intensive goods or products that are geographically advantaged for us. So this would be the Midwest wheat. And what do we trade for? Well, we tend to trade for low skill goods, commoditized items, and geographically disadvantaged items, those bananas. So principle number 5 is trade can make everyone better off. People don't want to produce everything. Instead, they end up specializing and trading. Patterns of shared culture, education, resources, etc. lead countries or regions to specialize and trade too, a lot like individuals. So what should we specialize in and trade? Well, that has to do with comparative advantage, but that's a story for another video. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.